Hi everyone, Autumn here. I just wanted to do a an audio podcast today on my own personal experience being in a relationship with a narcissist and enduring narcissistic abuse. I want to apologize for my voice. My allergies have been acting up lately, but I still wanted to do an audio podcast and video today. So, it's hard to do a video. It's hard to talk about our own personal experiences sometimes. If you're listening to this, you've probably gone through a similar experience or going through it. And so you know how difficult it can be. You know the pain it's caused. You know that the way that you trust people has changed. It's changed the way that you see relationships, the way you see partners or potential partners. It's even probably changed, I know it has for me, the way I see myself. You know, the way I see myself in the world and the way I view my own perception. Sometimes I don't trust myself anymore because I truly believed in my ex-husband. I truly believed him to be the person that I thought he was, that he presented himself to be. I knew there were some issues, in the relationship, and I'll talk about that. And I've talked about it and woven it into other videos and podcasts. And I want to personalize it because I feel as though, not just as a life coach and not just as working with people on a professional level, but also on a personal level, I understand it, and I think that that's really important because narcissistic abuse is one of those things. It's one of those things that you cannot understand unless you've been through it. I fully believe that. I think there's a lot of things in life that you can just empathize with, that you can sympathize with, that you can kind of put yourself into someone else's shoes, or you can take other similar types of experiences and apply it so that you can kind of understand. But narcissistic abuse, or I say that in general terms, any of the abuse by a cluster B personality disordered person, like narcissistic, borderlines, sociopaths, psychopaths, histrionics, they truly are. They truly operate different than even the average Joe abuser. There's something so pervasive and insidious and something so just soul crushing and mind screwing and life ruining on so many levels. So we need to recover from it. We need to heal. And I know, I hate this cliche, that at the end of the day, that somehow, some way, we'll all be better for having gone through the experience, because there's something huge that we'll learn from it, that there's no other possible way we could learn whatever it is we learn besides going through this enormously disastrous and devastating experience. But even so, even if at some point we all come out the other end bigger and better, more wise, that still doesn't justify, per se, it still does not give enough comfort during this very long, usually drawn out healing and recovery process. I started working with a new client recently, and her narcissistic relationship ended 3 years ago. Now, one of the things I will say, and the reason why she's now coming to me, is because she didn't deal with the relationship properly when it ended. She kind of She had all that pain, hurt, and confusion, and she buried it and kind of rebounded into another relationship. So I think the moral of the story is that we do have to face it, even though it's really hard, even though it's really difficult. We have to face it. We have to go through it, or else it's going to come out in other more destructive ways later on. So in my experience with my ex-narcissist, my experience was I met my ex-narcissist, and almost immediately I felt that soulful, soulmate, best friend connection, which, is indicative of narcissists. At the time, of course, I didn't realize it, but we all know the narcissists love bomb. They mirror back to you all of your own hopes, dreams. Someone said to me recently, "What was it about Mel that you fell in love with, that you loved so much or thought you did at the beginning?" And I said, "Well, we laughed at the same jokes, right? We saw life in similar ways. We had similar hopes and dreams. Our perspectives on the world were similar. We enjoyed similar kind of conversations." At the beginning of the relationship, I used to call him emotionally intelligent. I laugh at it now because he is probably one of the least emotionally intelligent people I've ever met in my life. But I actually said to one of his best friends, who also is a narcissist, I find out now, that he is the most emotionally intelligent man I've ever met. You know what I was saying? I really was saying I'm the most emotionally intelligent person I've ever met. Because what he was doing was he was just simply mirroring myself back to me. So when we had all these similar goals and dreams and hopes, what he was doing was he was taking my goals and dreams and hopes, and he was essentially making them his. So that, see, I was then attracted to them. I had an immediate bond to him that we shared in these perspectives, in these sense of humor, in the ways in which we saw life. And so, of course, he was my soulmate, my best friend. And not only that, but he said it. So I was 34 when we met. Luckily the relationship only lasted a year, and but it moved very quickly. And as most of you will know, even though I've met many people with incredibly long-term narcissistic relationships, which become so damaging, especially in retrospect. But 1 year with a narcissist can feel like 10 years, and it really does. And it felt like 10 years. And so I was 34, and I had stayed single for 4 years. I had dated a lot. And actually, right before I met Mel, my ex, I had I had reconnected with somebody that I had met several years prior when I wasn't yet ready to have a serious relationship. And he really, really wanted to be together. He saw us getting married, and I turned him down because I met Mel. And so we met online, which, online really is a haven for narcissists. But here's the thing. Nowadays, you have to have online dating as one of your slices of the pie to try to meet someone, because everyone's on it, and it's becoming harder and harder to meet in real life. And look, I've met a lot of friends I know a lot of friends that have met their spouses online, and it's worked out wonderfully. So I have nothing truly against online, although, you do have to be careful. But look, in the 4 years, the 4 years that I remained single, as in I did not have a serious relationship, I had plenty of opportunities and dated plenty of men, I probably went out on hundreds of first dates. Now, that was the first 3 years. The last year before I met Mel, I only went on a handful of dates, maybe 5 or 6 in that year, first dates. In general, and most of them were from online. I had a lot to compare it to. I had a lot of bad dates. I had a lot of guys I had dated for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, 3 months that I never really felt that true connection with, or that I didn't feel put in enough effort. I had high boundaries. I had high expectations. I had pretty strong boundaries, which is what surprises me that I got into the situation. But I had that message being given to me, and I guess this is another learning thing, another takeaway. And this goes for women and for men, because ultimately, I do truly believe there are just as many narcissistic women as there are narcissistic men. I really believe that. And the truth was the message I was given from friends, from some of the men that I dated that I didn't want a serious relationship with. I was told that I was too picky, that I expected too much from men, that I wasn't forgiving enough, that I had too high of expectations. And so I started to lower them because I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to lose a great person. And so when I met Mel, my ex, there were a lot of little, tiny little things that would happen. But again, they seem to happen with so many men, so many people. And the message I was given was that I'm not lenient enough, I'm not forgiving enough over these smaller things, so I need to start to be that way. So I did. Anyway, so we met. First date was wonderful, of course, mirrored and was attentive and pretended like he was listening, although half the time he's not. He does have a hearing loss. He's about, I don't know how deaf he is, maybe 50, 60% deaf. But with his hearing aids, he can hear fine. And I've always found it peculiar that with almost everyone else, he seems to hear just fine. But when it came to me, he didn't seem to hear very well. He wouldn't pay attention. But I didn't really realize that. All the stuff that I'm kind of interjecting, I didn't realize it at the time. I was already, by the second, third date, falling hard for him. It's really hard to talk about this. Even after months of healing and letting it go. See, I don't have the same type of pain anymore because I've come to realize the truth. And you will realize the truth as well if you haven't yet, which is that you essentially were not in love with anybody. Even though it feels like you were, and there's no way you can discredit your pain and discredit your love because it felt real to you. The real truth is that the person you were in love with never existed. And therefore, you never loved them. You didn't love anybody. You loved a figment of their imagination because that person who was emotionally, verbally, physically abusive, who used you, who manipulated you, whatever your narcissist did, and they probably did, a combination of 20, 30 malignant, maniacal things, that person is really a dark, ugly, black pit of shit and anger and rage and hostility and nothing but negative, disgusting energy. That person is barely human. Sam Vaknin, who's the leading expert in narcissism, I would say, not only academically, but also because he has been diagnosed with malignant narcissism, psychopathy, he says that narcissists aren't really even human. And I believe it. My ex-husband was not even human because a human being cannot look someone in the eye and say that they love them, that they'll spend the rest of their lives with them, knowing full well that they point blank do not mean that at all and that they're only trying to dupe them to get something out of them. This is not a case of, I really care for this person a lot. I'm not quite totally 100% in love with them, but I could see maybe going there. Or it's not even a case of where we fool ourselves. This is a case where your partner had some type of agenda from the beginning. Either it be that you made them look good, that you offered them some type of resource or connection. For me, it was that I offered my ex-husband a green card because I was a United States citizen. And he played right into that. So going back to my story, so go on our second date. It's wonderful. I always wondered where that man went in our first 3, 4, 5 dates. There was this man. The man that followed shortly after was still wonderful too. But those first 4 or 5 dates, there was this man. I don't know where he went. I spent many nights wishing for him to come back. Wishing. He was charming and funny and sweet and affectionate. Very sexual, but not inappropriately. Just like I could tell he wanted me. And then going into the first few weeks of dating, he slightly changed, but things were wonderful. And I truly fell in love. He told me he was in love with me. That we wanted to, look, it was quick. We got married quick, but we were in love. And even though there was a possibility it may not work, we both really wanted it to work. I remember one time, right when we were talking about this, and we were driving, and he said to me, I was talking to my father, and he told me that it takes hard work to make a relationship work, and that no matter what happens, that you need to just see it through, and that it will happen, and that it'll work out. Basically what he said to me was that was how he felt, and he was making that commitment to me. And I said the same thing to him. We didn't just talk about this once or twice, we talked about it a lot. The thing is that yes, there were some issues, and they always stemmed from a few main things. Now I know why. He would disappear. He might make plans and just not follow through. He had a habit of just not calling me. He promised he would move in. We had dates set after we got married. He just never moved in. Signed leases with me, but never moved in. For example, I might get off of work on a Friday, and he wouldn't, he took a bar job for most of the most of the marriage. He didn't consult me. It's interesting because I later found out that he took that job and he was hooking up with women at the bar. When he was telling me he was saving for an engagement, a real wedding ring, rather. Have a real wedding in Ireland, in his home country. We had all these plans. We were talking about starting a family and having plans. And it goes, it's just that you find out these lies. I don't really need to go into it because the story. It's so bizarre, right? Excuse me, I'm sorry to get emotional. It's just, how it is. It's so bizarre. Every single story I've heard of somebody else's story with them and their narcissist, men and women, you could literally replace their partner's name with my partner's name, and their name with my name, and replace whatever their partner was after, either it be money or a certain type of lifestyle or whatever their agenda was, with my husband's agenda, which was to get a green card, and the story is exactly the same. Literally. So the long and short is, things did get bad between us at times because, of course, now I was way too lenient. I was way too forgiving. Apparently, he made up. What I've come to find out is he told his friend, and luckily his girlfriend found his best friend is, I believe, a somatic narcissist. Mine is a cerebral, and she left him because he was cheating again, and had secret girlfriends and was doing a whole bunch of horrible shit to her. We ended up talking. Well, basically what came out was that my ex-husband told me he had been sexually abused. Stories. Made them all up to garner my attention, my sympathy. Made up, cried, fake tears. He pretended to go to therapy and 12-step meetings. He made up a name of a sponsor. Made it up. It's like when you start looking at this, and I'm sure you know you've been through it. It's unbelievable. And we would have problems. He would disappear. He wouldn't show up. My car would break down. He just wouldn't answer the phone. He would lie, until he finally quit the bar job. A few months before we broke up, he would lie and say he was working at the bar. He would go to swingers clubs, I found out, with his friend. Pick up women when he went out with his friend. The list goes on and on. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. And so I got information from a whole bunch of different sources. He told multiple people. When we got married, we were in love. I didn't want him to go back to Europe. We were planning a future, a family. We talked about it. We had a soulful connection. And he was just telling people, willy-nilly, that he didn't even like me. And he was only using me for a green card. Now, I'm a fairly pretty woman. I get hit on all the time. I have no problem getting men. I've gotten men so much better than him. I am right now. I always do. Doctors, tall, hotter, whatever the reason was. I just had a connection with him. He's got a disability. He talks with a lisp. He's stupid, kind of. I gotta be honest. He's not very smart. He doesn't know what words mean. Simple words, like democracy. Well, you go, Autumn, what does this word mean? Democracy. What does it mean? And it's like you look back, you're like, how could someone be so stupid? But I looked past all of these things. When I met him, he was basically not legal in this country anymore. He had just started some new career. He hadn't had a job for almost a year. He would lock himself in his bedroom for days. He was a weirdo. He can't keep friends for more than a year or two. People I met through him would say to me, why are you with him? He's a fucking weirdo. None of my friends liked him. My family couldn't stand him. Even when they first met him, they didn't like him. But I saw something beyond that. I didn't want to judge. But look, we live, we learn. And I think that, we need to have higher boundaries and expectations for ourselves. Having said that, though, the truth of the matter is this. I had a lot of empathy for him. I loved him. A lot of sympathy. I forgave and I forgot because I loved him. Because that's what love is, right? Maybe I need to love myself more and have better boundaries. But at the end of the day, I did nothing wrong. And neither did you. So don't ever take the blame. You may be a little bit at fault for letting us a little too much slide because you loved them, because you wanted to help them, because you wanted to be there for them, because loyalty, forgiveness, compassion is what love is, but you are not to blame. ever. Never. And that narcissist, my ex, would try to revert that. Just today, all this stuff came out in the last 2 weeks where I was trying to make a decision on what to do. And I've decided to get an annulment so that his entire immigration will be wiped out and he'll have to go home. Because I realized I wouldn't have done this. I'm a very fair person, but here's the truth. And I care, but what's fair to the narcissist is that you no longer enable their bad behavior. And you need to get them out of your life no matter how you do it. They will only hurt you and use you and treat you badly and blame you. They will only gaslight you. They will only lie, manipulate you to get what they want, make it seem like it's your fault every time something goes wrong. My ex would be 5 hours late to make me sit around and wait for him, ruin plans. I would have dinner, and he would come, and somehow it would be my fault. I know he was cheating, but he would project onto me and for no reason accuse me of cheating. Anyway, I want to stop that here. This is just kind of a rant to talking about some of my own experiences. I don't want to go off too much on it. And I know that everybody has, if you've gone through this, y'all have your own unique experiences. And oddly enough, though, as unique as they are, we all kind of have the same story. And I've read a lot of other blogs and listened to a lot of other videos and podcasts, and it's just amazing the similarity we all have. So now that we rise from the ashes of this and have boundaries and set expectations, that we let go of this person, that we do whatever we have to legally, emotionally, either be divorce, making sure your kids can't have access to this, this man can't have access to your kids, either it be revoking their green card, whatever legal actions you have to take to get this person out of your life in a safe way so that you protect yourself, emotional way. Do not answer their phone calls. Do not meet with them without another person present. Do not contact them except for if it's about something you can't avoid. So I wish everybody good luck. I will put out another video tomorrow that will be more informative. Namaste.